Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever, wherever you find yourself. Welcome to another episode of Demystify Tech. But yours truly, Samuel Adraning. We try to do this Fridays, and all the Fridays we can do it, demystifying everything technology for you. Obviously, if you're a modding developer, this channel is your preferred choice. That gives you some insight into technology and all the good things that come with. We can talk about within the space of 1 hour on the Microsoft Azure Cloud. If this sounds like something that is of interest to you, stick and stay. When we get back, we're going to jump right into it. Interesting. The modding developers journey begins on the show. So welcome to the show. If this is your first time, please do us the honor of subscribing to the channel so that we can grow it and make it and then you will be able to join the channel. And then if I drop any videos or any behind the scenes or whatever that is, you will be part of the Today, what are we talking about? We're talking about everything cloud technologies, and specifically on the Microsoft Azure ecosystem. So, yes. Welcome to the show, Eric. Welcome to the show. You love my Michael Jackson haircut. Yeah, my hair. Yeah. Now, before we jump into it, as I do always, this is just to throw more light and also to draw attention on the fact that .NET Conf is coming up on the 16th. Accra .NET and Azure user group. We're hosting it this coming Saturday. It's a hybrid event, so it's going to be virtual and also in person. So keep your eye on the show, and then I would be, I'll try as much as possible to give you that information. And then also at the end of the stream, I would share with you some resources on how to join the user group and how to get the information there. However, if you go to, I think I can share this right now. If you go to the .NET Conf website, you can see the Accra. Let's have some fun, and a day filled of technology on Azure.net you can think about. So today on the show, like I said, for the next 1 hour, I'll try as much as possible to demystify everything I can on Microsoft Azure, and then also cloud technologies, and I also provide you some resources on the cloud technology. And don't forget that if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. I will bring them up and try to answer them for you to the best of my knowledge. And then also try as much as possible to get that happening for you. So the question most people are with a very, very basic definition of what the cloud is. So to the layman, right, you can say people have different interpretations of what the cloud means to different sorts of ways they see it, but technically you can describe it mostly as a global network, right, of servers. And it is the sound keeps cutting. Let's see. Thank you, Sylvian, for that update. Is the sound still cutting? Let me know if you still having issues with the sound. I see the sound meter is fine here. I don't know, but maybe either restart your stream or change the stream to see. It could be a network issue. I'm not entirely sure. Everything here on my dashboard shows is okay. Just let me know, and then I can try to resolve that for you as we move forward. So the cloud is right? But it's mostly a vast. Same here. Okay. Okay. Let's see. How about now? Is it clipping? Is the sound clipping? How about now? How about now? Is the sound better? Yeah, so for those that thank you so much for letting me know what's happening. I will try to. It is better now. Good for now. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think I'll probably have to look at my settings. It's probably clipping the sound at a particular dB decibel, so it's probably that's why it's cutting up. Anyway, hopefully this remains the same, remains better for the rest of the show. Most of the cloud infrastructure is just connection of a vast network of remote machines running somewhere. Now, there are physical servers associated with the cloud. Awesome, thank you so much. Love yeah, Sylvian, thanks for joining the show. Thanks for joining the show. Yes, it's just to remind people that .NET is coming up for us Saturday 16th. So yeah, these are some of the swags that are available for the people who show up to participate in that event. So that's just by the way. Thank you for joining, Sylvia. So servers actually involved in the whole cloud technology stack. It's just that you don't necessarily have to worry about these infrastructure, right? So in terms of spinning them up, updating them, doing all that, you don't necessarily have to worry about that. However, depending on the cloud, the module you go for, right, that will determine exactly what responsibility you have. So let's use some, let's say, very basic some very simple these simple concepts of what the cloud is. And yeah, don't forget to drop your questions and I will of course answer them. So let's go ahead. I'm going to open up some few. Today specifically, we will be talking mostly about the Microsoft Azure Cloud, right? So we're going to focus on that to see all the services. We'll also look at how you can create Azure account and leverage them as well. All right. The cloud itself, different modules of the cloud. Now, with context on the Microsoft Azure Cloud, pretty much it is cloud services provided by Microsoft. Cloud services ranging from compute resources, databases, other infrastructure, networking infrastructure, AI infrastructure, and all that pretty much provided for the two, probably three, but then the main types of clouds, right? So you can have the public cloud architecture, or you can have the private cloud architecture, and then you can have the hybrid cloud architecture. So for the public cloud architecture, which is what you have, like the likes of GCP, all those play in the space of the public cloud, because they are accessible for pretty much anyone who wants to develop and put their resources in the cloud, right? Then we can talk about the private cloud, which is mostly you can term or say a private cloud when you're running your own infrastructure, right? Pretty much it's not on Azure, it's not. And then we can talk about a hybrid cloud, where there are instances where you have some workload in the public cloud and some workload in your own cloud. So someone would ask, why, when, or why? Most times when you have some regulations or compliance issues or compliance to adhere to For instance, there are some regulatory requirements that states that you cannot have your customer data outside the jurisdiction of your local geography, your state or your country, right? And we know that we'll come to talk about the regions when we start talking about Microsoft Azure Cloud. A lot of these cloud providers have their infrastructure or service scattered across the different places. And these are the locations where they host your data if you put your stuff in the cloud. So if these compliance or regulation policies require that you can't store your customers' data in another sovereign country, then that means own private cloud infrastructure, which is your server and network infrastructure, to host your customer data locally. And then maybe you host the applications that process that information in the cloud, which is in a public cloud. So in that situation, you are actually doing what we call the hybrid cloud setup. Now, whether you do the private cloud, the sound keeps cutting frequently, right? What could this be? Let's see. Okay, let's bring this a bit here. I want to, it's clipping, right? Okay, so I think I want to believe it's potentially due to some settings I have which prevents the sound from going above a certain decibel. But let's see if I can quickly, let's see if I can check on the filters. Forgive me guys whilst I do this. Let's do let me increase the threshold a bit. Actually, let me I'm going to take this off for now and see. I'm taking the limiter off, and I'm going to go again, and then if the sound keeps clipping, let me know. I'll adjust my filters to the microphone so that we can look at that. Now, so that's the private cloud situation. Now, saying that whether you choose to do private cloud, hybrid cloud, or public cloud, you have deployment options. And here we're talking about infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and and now in some cases they have serverless, as a service. That's also there. Now, so let me break down all the three. So let's start from infrastructure as infrastructure as a service, which is IaaS. Now, most times this option is very applicable to how do we call it, to instances where systems, or again you have some proprietary code where actually, let me share this. Let's go here. I'm going to share this image, which thanks to Spice, this is a very basic example of what I was trying to explain. So we've talked about the private, the public, and the hybrid. Those are the the cloud computing options. Now the service module, like I was saying, infrastructure as a service, this is where mostly you have, in terms of control. Now, one thing you should understand is that you take on as the owner of that resource, and then also as the provider of the cloud infrastructure. In this case, because we're talking about Microsoft Azure, in this case, Microsoft Azure itself. It's where you are deploying or instantiating things like virtual machines in the cloud, where you want some deployment option, where you want most or major control of your cloud asset, right? So let's say you are deploying a solution and you want full control of it. You want to be able to determine what OS you are installing on it. You want to be able to do, how do you call it? You want to be able to do your own management, right? You're going for infrastructure as a service, mostly denoted by provisioning and working for you. Then you move on to platform as a service. So for platform as a service, there is a shared responsibility between you and the cloud provider. So what the cloud service provider is doing is making sure that the bare metal or the compute is patching, is security, networking, and all that mostly is done or taken care of you by, taken care for you by the cloud provider. Your data and then your application, you are responsible for that. And then you just sit on top and that's it. Then we can talk about dealing with the last part for now, which is software as a service, which is pretty much, I don't really care about it. I just want to run my application. So you are just worried in that situation. Most of your concern is just the data. Even the application you don't have to worry about. Now, I can give you some synonyms to this if you want to relate it to real life. So starting from software as a service on the far right, okay, is as staying into a hotel or checking into a hotel. All right. When you check into a hotel, you really don't care about how the building was, who built it, who is maintaining it, cleaning it. You really don't care about that. All you do is you check in, they take your stuff, they allot you a room, you go into your room, you sleep, you wake up, go do whatever you can, you don't really care about it. You're just using the service. Every other thing is not your concern. All you're worried about is your bag, which you take there, and yourself, which is just your data. That is synonymous to software as. Come to platform as a service. So platform as a service, I won't say Airbnb because Airbnb is now trying to get close into the point of almost software service. So it's like renting an apartment, renting in a house, right? There are some shared responsibilities. House, like when you need to make sure your surroundings are clean, inside the house is clean. As a service, there is some responsibility on your side, and then at some point, if there's some major, to fix that. So there's a shared responsibility. Then infrastructure as a code, you can see infrastructure as a code as this is where you go buy a piece of land yourself. You buy the land and you're responsible. Okay, this is how I want to build the house. This is for that one. Pretty much you just bought the land and you have full control of what you build, how you build it, and what you put up there. So that is infrastructure as as a service. So these are the three main and so from the base deployment to the service module, these are the the three main types. Now there's like serverless as a service, different things, but these are the core three services which cuts across all the cloud platforms. So whether you're doing GCP, AWS, Azure, all it is the same. Now there is a somewhat debate on, is it Azure, Azure? Please, I'm saying however you say it, but the spelling is Azure, right? So now let's take ourselves to a bit of what Microsoft provides, right? I'm going to take you to, so if you go to azure.microsoft.com, which is the Azure page, so Azure is Microsoft's offering for cloud services, various cloud services. Today, I'm going to show you how to create a way for you to create an account to use. There are other programs like Dev Essentials. There are, other programs that will allow you or give you access to the Azure resources. Quick question, those on the stream, is the sound still clipping or it's better now? Kindly let me know so that I can adjust my microphone settings as soon as I can. All right. So Azure primarily gives you a lot of pay-as-you-go options. Show note. So you can go to azure.microsoft.com. Yes. Give me if this, let's see. This would be very interesting. Let's see. I'm going to disable a few things here so that we can try to get some things going. Okay, let's try again. Let's go at it again and see how that that's working. Yes. So here, yeah, like you can, like I mentioned, you can go to azure.microsoft.com and give you, I think, $100 for 30 days. However, once you have the account, you can continue to use it beyond the 30 days, which is if you stick within using the free tier of services in Microsoft Azure. There are a lot of free services. So far as you're sticking to that free tier, you can pretty much use it. You can use the services for as long as you want. And then when you're ready to transition to some, higher tier services, you pay for it, which is pay as you go. If you have any, I'll try to take service by service and then, dig deep into it, provisioning it, so we use and see how that works. If you have any specific interest, you can vote up for me to start with those. So this is some of the very basic things you can do. Like I said, from services to compute to databases, you can have all that on Azure, right? There are a lot of services. Now, I mentioned that most of these cloud services deploy their solutions across, different. Talking in context of Azure, I want to share with you the Azure region. Where is that? Let's go here. And let me let me open this as well. I'll talk about that as well. Let's get here. I will just go ahead. Let me actually do this. That's going to make it a lot easier. Azure regions. And I'll share with you some tool that I use determine where I deploy my solutions. And I'll show you the trick to doing that. So let's go ahead and explore the Microsoft Azure. Let's see. Let's go. So Microsoft keeps they keep adding more, they keep adding more locations and regions to it. Now, depending on your region, right? Depending on your region, there are different availability zones that's there. So let's go ahead and look at the product by the region. Let's look at the new region. So these are the new regions that are being added to the Microsoft Israel, Italy, Poland, Qatar. There are a few of them. We can go here, and as you can see, these are the regions that are coming up. I want to pull up another one for you. Let's go ahead here. Is because it's a vast network of systems, right, which could be deployed in different regions. One of the key things is to make sure that wherever you're deploying your solutions or resources is closer to you, so that there isn't a lot of latency when you are accessing your resources. With that, so I have let's see, it's called the Azure latency test. You can go here. So if you go to the Azure latency test, our location on the map, I mean Africa or Ghana specifically, is most of the times either Europe or East US is where you think would be kind of like the closest to you. So there is the latency application here. You can see if I say France Central and maybe US, East US 2, and maybe let's do let's say West Europe. All right. So as you can see, as I select it, this graph can show you that is from where I am currently streaming right now to these servers or these regions. So you can see that it looks as if Front Central has the least between now, like what I'm doing now and there. So I would be put in that region. And sorry if I'm closing a lot of the tabs, because I'm still using the same internet to do my stream, so I need to conserve and maximize that. All right, so that what you need to do is basically just create an account, right? Create an account, which is going to azure.microsoft.com, start a which you can go ahead, and this requires you to provide your student ID and some email to be able to jump onto it. There is also what we call the GitHub. You can see the GitHub, I think, action pack. The GitHub action pack also Visual Studio Code, which is free to use. And also there's Azure for Student, which allows you, gives you $100 of Azure credit to use. And after that, you will still be able to use Azure on the free tier of things, right? Now, once you have created an account, your very first point of call when you want to use Azure is to go to the Azure portal, right? Which is portal.azure.com. So I'm going to go to, the Azure portal, then we'll open up and see all the services. Now, before I jump into the services, there is also the misconception or this debate or conversation about the fact that the cloud is not safe. I always say that it is a fallacy. And I always use this very basic analogy. One of these doors, one of these security or, supposed very safe, bulletproof, very high, defense doors, and you fixed it to any region. So not necessarily. So far as you can prove that you are a student, they would sort that out for you. It doesn't matter the region. Most regions are supported. There are some restrictions, but most regions are supported. So like I said, I keep doing this analogy that if you go and buy the most secure doors with the keys, and when you're leaving, you put the key, and someone picks the key and has access to your house or opens your house, enters and steal your stuff. Definitely no. The door was secured. This is you did that exposed or gave the person who broke in access to the keys that gave them access to your house. So it is the same thing here. Putting your stuff in the cloud, whatever you are putting up in the cloud adheres to standard practice that doesn't expose your keys or stuff that give them access to it. And also there is another conversation that people keep saying that the cloud is almost guaranteed cost effective. Well, there is also a fallacy there if you don't do it well. That is why you need to engage the services of cloud architects or people who are well versed in it to help you architect a solution to deploy in the cloud. Because if you're not careful and you feel that, oh, we need to go to the cloud, that might end up costing you more than you had probably on your private infrastructure. So we should have that at the back of our minds. It's not always to say that when you move to the cloud, it's cheaper. Yes, there are a lot of services that can make your deployment to the cloud cheaper, but if you don't follow those practices, you're just ending up costing yourself more. One of the things that cloud does for you is to reduce your capital expenditure, right? Which is the amount you need to get started. We'll give you an example. If you're running your own private infrastructure and you want to, deploy some new services, there's the whole process. Buy hard drives, buy memory upgrades, the power, the cooling, the building, the security. You need to think about all these things. This is initial cost you need to be able to provision that infrastructure. But for most times, as you're going to see in the cloud, initial capital expense, you're mostly doing more of OPEX, operational expense. You're paying for it as you go, right? That's one of the biggest advantages of it. So this here, I'm just going to go ahead and try to jump onto it. Now, one thing you need to understand is that the whole of the Microsoft ecosystem is reliant on running of the ecosystem. And fun fact, this is not it's no longer a secret. It would interest you to know that the last FIFA World Cup that was played, the last FIFA World Cup that was played, a lot of them and strength of what the Microsoft Azure Cloud can provide for you. Now, as you can see from here, we you can literally provision stuff from artificial intelligence, machine learning. These are a few of the have on Azure, from machine learning, AI services, Azure AI Vision, cognitive services, bot services, data bricks. If you move to the areas of compute, which is bare bone connection or the servers, Azure Functions, app services. And just under compute, there are over 200 plus products, which you're going to see. I'll walk you through how to provision a very basic service and deploy stuff into it. And all kind care to see. We use some ChatGPT and some Copilot stuff as well to see how to do that. This is a developer show, so hey, you can trust us with doing some quick demos. And then in the areas of containers, you have Azure App Service, Azure Functions, Kubernetes, Azure Container Instances. It's not just Azure stuff. It's not just I can only put .NET stuff in Azure. That's not true. You can put Java stuff. You think about it. You can put all there. Azure, there's a hybrid multi-cloud. Actually, this is one of the interesting things that in recent times I've been exploring with Microsoft Azure, where multi-cloud or hybrid infrastructure, where you can have some of your resources in, let's say, AWS or GCP, and you can manage them within Azure using Azure Arc, right? Really interesting and cool product. Then IoT, if you know me, I love to do so Defender for IoT, lots and lots of products on that ecosystem. Now, one of the things that in the coming series or episode, we will also be talking. I mentioned that we will be looking at the various services and go deep dive into it, which will be a lot of the Azure AI Studio, which is where you can do a lot of the Azure AI specific services like cognitive, ChatGPT, all these things. You can do them. So I'll be spending some time in using that to create AI, because AI now is infusing almost everywhere. And then we will see how to, deploy that. So let's go ahead and, as you can see, this is a directory of all the services you can provide. But enough of the talk. Take you through some of the services. So today, what do? Maybe we can go ahead and create a very simple, let's say, node application and deploy it into, I'll start with Azure Functions, which is a very, very basic and simple pay as you use or per second billing for a service, which is like a PaaS service, where all you do is just to create a simple function that allows you to create simple web services in a serverless manner. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So to do that, we'll go to portal.azure.com. That's what happens when you have a lot of, actually, you know what? Let me change this. Let's go to portal.azure.com. I'm having to redo this because that would have picked a different environment or tenant for our show, so I'm changing it. Just a sec. Send the notification. There we go. I need to give it, use the authenticator app to approve it. Being careful in the era of all these hacks. There we go. And then, and yet, whilst I'm trying to walk you through the demo, if you have any more questions, just drop it. Oh yeah, and I can show you something behind there as well. All right, so this is my my homepage. As you can see, I have 141 remaining at the top because I'm using one of the accounts that has some Azure subscriptions, right? So these are, Azure has a concept of subscriptions, resource groups, and services, right? So subscriptions, you want to are synonymous to your billing account, right? Which is how you going to pay for a service. And under those subscriptions, you can create a lot of services. They have the concept of resource, a logical folder or a logical grouping of all your services. Some people use resource groups for departments. Some people use it for project base. So you can see that here, in my case, a resource group for IoT Tuesday, and I have another resource group for something I'm calling crafted crimes and different things, right? So what I'm doing here is that I'm using the resource group to literally organize the services I have in there. So for the purposes of for Demystify Tech, I can go ahead and create a new resource group, right? And I will call it, let's go ahead and create a new resource group. There you go. And I will put it here in this sponsorship, and I'll call it Demystify _ tech. And there you go. And you realize I mentioned about the regions because of latency. Yeah, for the sake of the show, I'll keep it to East US. And then I'll go to next. So here I can add tags. Now, tags are a way to also allow you to logically any tags. I'll go to review. It will make sure everything is okay. And I can go ahead and click on create. Now, there is also the concept of infrastructure as code, where you are actually copying the code, the underlying code that is used in the. You want to create a CI/CD pipeline, and you say that I want to create a new resource group. This is the code to create the resource group, and therefore use this code to provision, and you can do that. And to do that in Azure, once you're trying to do this, you can go all the way down here. Down here. Yeah, and then you can see this, which is download a template for automation. So when you click on this, it will store it and use that in a DevOps environment to recreate another resource group if you want to. Let's do this. Let me just open this up. And as you can see, it's a very interesting JSON file here. You can see the region name is a type of string, the location. So that's all I'm providing. So I can download this as a script, and I can provide parameters if I want it in a DevOps pipeline or an integration pipe. Yeah, so there we go. We have Demystify Tech here, which is created for us, and we don't have any services in it yet. And like I was saying, you have resource groups and you can create. So the first thing we want to create here, like I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and create a very simple Azure function that allows us to pretty much build our own. Go ahead and provision the function service here in the cloud and build it in the cloud. Or I can do local development of the function and then push it or save it to the cloud. So I will start by creating the service in the cloud. Now there is the Azure developer CLI, right, which is called the AZD, right? So let's say Azure AZD. This Azure Developer CLI is a bunch of CLI tools that allow you to do a lot of the things you would have actually done in Azure, in the Azure portal, by clicking and doing stuff, right? So installing it is quite straightforward. There is a winget option for it, or you can easily just I think the easiest is just to do, you know, here. Easiest would be for you to do a winget, just, and that installs it, and then you can start to use all the AZD stuff. Actually, let's see if, so that we can so that we can use it at some point. Yeah, you can keep some part of the screen is also clipping. Wow, that is interesting. There's something, probably because I'm using Zoom It to give you a zoom of the let's go ahead and do this. Hopefully you can see this. So let's do winget upgrade. I know I have it already, so upgrade Microsoft.azd. Hopefully it shouldn't be that crazy today. Issue that keeps clipping the video and the audio, but ideally, yeah, a newer version was found, but the install technically is different from the current version. Please uninstall and install the newer one. So pretty much I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. So install oh, we didn't spell it well. Look at us. Reinstall, we'll reinstall it. Okay, so as you can see, remove it, takes everything off, finish. This time around, we'll do install, and then this hopefully will use a new is a new version of Azure Developer CLI that I can use, you know, to pretty much run a lot of, so I can do AZD and I'll have the help of, you know, all the things. So AZD alt, AZD init, and this can easily help you, you know, to deploy solutions very rapidly without having to worry about what resources I need to spin up and stuff like that. Okay, so let's go back to our Azure, and then so I'm going here into the services and I'll type function, because I want to do an Azure function. So Azure function is a service, a serverless compute service per second billing service that's provided by Microsoft, that allows you to build serverless applications, right? So you want to build an API in a serverless function, you can use functions apps to do that. So for this very first one, I'm going to go ahead to create a very simple function app, and then so I want to create a very basic API, a very simple API. If you pass into an endpoint, okay. So subscription, Demystify Tech is the resource group. Let's see if I do this. Oh well, let's just use Microsoft Azure Studio Enterprise, and I'll put it in Demystify Tech. And what's the name of the function? So we'll just call it Demystify. So we'll just call it Demystify Tech Demo. All right, so that's the name of the function, Demystify Tech Demo. And as you can see, .azurewebsite.com. And here, a couple of things you need to take note of. So in the container, in most of the Azure stuff, especially for functions, you can decide to deploy the application either as code, which is pure code, or as container image. Now, today, I'm not doing anything I'm not going deep into Azure Functions. I've done a lot of stuff on Azure Functions. Yes, though it has changed, and I renew it as we move on. So I can deploy my functions as a code, or I want it to be deployed as a container. I'll be doing some, how do you call it? I'll be doing some node specific stuff. So I'm going to make sure that I'm selecting the runtime as node, the version, and the region, which is always the same thing. And I can also choose the operating system under which I'm running. So runtime is going to be Node. As you can see, supports .NET, Python, Node, Java, PowerShell core. You can write your own custom handler. So these are the languages or platform supported. So I'm going to do something in Node. The region to East US for latency or access to the function. And this operating system, I can let it run on a Linux environment or Windows environment. Since I'm doing Node, I'll put it on a Linux environment, right? Then down here, I have the option to select between consumption, which is the default serverless. So this is how the serverless compute works. It is called, the server is provisioned or is working to run your process. Your code that you have created to run or execute the function, and then when it's done for some time, we wait for some time, and then it will deprovision everything again. That's the default consumption plan, and that one is per second billing. So if your code, if the system wakes up, provisions, and runs for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever the seconds, that is how much you're going to be billed for if you use a consumption plan, right? Now, premium is more of event-based. And you want at least some warm instances running, so your function, your APIs don't seem to take a while the first time you call it, or after it goes back to sleep. That would be the function premium, and that is for service plan. So app service plan, which I might probably talk about in the next episode, is if you have an app service where you are deploying your apps, right? You can have an environment, or basically the underlying app service plan, which is the compute that is storing or hosting your app. You can use that same compute to host your functions, your serverless function, right? But for the purpose of today, we're going to stick to the consumption plan, which is the default. And then now let's go to storage. Now, like I mentioned, because for serverless, your code is stored. The code to run your application is what is stored and provisioned. It's a place to store it. So as part of that, let's go ahead and create a new storage, and I'll call it Demystify Tech. All right. So this is going to create a new storage account for us, and it's going to keep it there. We can stick to the default. Now, networking. Do we want this function to be publicly available? Right. If the answer is yes, you set it off. We don't want to enable any network injection. We'll go to monitoring. Do I want Azure? I won't go deep into this, which is just a way to track or collect analytics or information about your app as it's running, so Azure can make some insightful decisions for you. We'll leave that to no. Let's go back. No, I won't do any application insight. Here, GitHub integration, right? The code that I'm coming to write, am I going to use source control, right? Version control? Is it going to be in GitHub? Do I want to have GitHub function app? Do I want to do that? If I want to do that, I will enable it here. I'll go ahead and enable it and then use, right? For the purpose of this, we'll just leave it this way. Realize that I've already connected my GitHub account to it. So you can connect it and create workflows. So as you commit them, actions will run and deploy them into this function. We'll go ahead and leave the tags out as we did in the first case, and then go ahead and create. Now, once this is creating, like I mentioned, I have two options of creating the Azure functions and deploying to the cloud for me to see how it works. I can decide to create the functions right here. You will not be able to download or edit it in tools like Visual Studio Code. You won't be able to do that, right? However, if you're going to do some continuous development and you pretty much want to do things, I would suggest best practice, use Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, whatever you want to use, build your function and deploy it, because that gives you a lot more flexibility to use. You can do the same thing in the browser, right? But the only thing is, what's going to happen is that, assuming you want to develop and you don't have internet, right, you might be found wanting. So if you use the local development and publish approach, then you can actually set up a local development environment for building Microsoft Azure functions, and with that you can easily deploy them to the cloud. Okay, so it looks like our deployment is done. So now if we go to our Azure portal, you can see that this is the overview of it. We only have the base function up there. We don't have anything in there here, right? We've not created any function. So if you go to and anytime you create any of the Azure resources, it gives you so you can see that it says your function 4.2 app is up and running. So the compute, which is the server behind running this Azure function, is running, just that I have not written any code to put it into Azure, right? So that's how simple it is to provision a service for Azure. If I wanted to also provision, let's say if I'm building a web application, a front end, right? Right now we're looking at this like an API. If I'm building a React, Vue, any of those things, or .NET Core, whatever that is, I can also create an app service that allows me to deploy the application. Even if I'm doing single page applications, I have something called static web apps, which is another Azure service, which I can use to provision it. If I need databases, I can use a lot of the Azure database services, where you have some Cosmos, Postgres, MySQL. They have all those options, right? So before we sign off and call it a day, deploy it. Now we have the function environment running. Okay, how do we create our application or the code that is going to run in there? And for the purpose of today, I'll go ahead and use the local version, as in build locally and deploy. All right, hopefully we can get that done. So I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code, and because I have the Azure extension, I can go ahead and by clicking this, and as you can see, it's loading. So on the top here, I have the options, as you can see, and this is Visual Studio Code, right? Hey Daniela, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining. Hope you're doing excellent. So as of now, I have a couple of things added to the account, right? But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add or sign into Azure using the same accounts that I logged in earlier. So this is what you do if you went ahead to create an Azure account. You're going to use that account to log in onto this site, right? So let's go ahead and do that here. So I'm going to sign in, and you can see an extension allow, and this is going to open up, it opens up a browser, right, like this. So I'm going to select the account. Where's my phone for MFA? It's going to send it here, and I'm going to approve that on my phone. Yes, 30. Awesome. So once that's logged out, it is going to sign in, right? It's waiting on the left, so it's signing into the directory. I'll just wait for it to pretty much. So once this is done, it is going to pull all the resources I have in all the subscriptions, resource groups, account, everything that I have in that login that I use. I'm going to see it here, and then I can now select. Okay, I'm going to use a Microsoft account to do that. I can now select which resources I am working, I'm working on. So whilst we wait for that to happen, so it's asking me which directory do I want to sign into, which is the directories that were in my Azure portal. So I'm doing the Demystify tech directory, and then yes, allow. And that's also going to try to validate again. So and then all right, and then we'll close this, and now you can see that all the subscriptions are here. So I'm going to go back to, you can see there's Azure, all the subscription I had in there were in there. So I'm using the Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. So when I open it up, let's do this. When I open this up, you can see all the applications. There's the functions app. And when I open this, you see this is the Demystify. This is a Demystify to Visual Studio Code. All right. So with this done, all the Azure function extension in Visual Studio Code. Okay. So I'm going to do Control-Shift-P and I'll do function. So you see, Azure function, I'm going to create so I'm going to create a function app in Azure. I just say I'm going to create an Azure, let's create a project, okay, so that we can store it locally. So now it's asking me where I want. I have dev, and I think I'm going to create a new folder here called Azure. All right. And then, yeah, so I'll use this folder. Now, in the same way, what you remember when I was creating the functions app, I said I wanted to use Node. So if I want to use, what language am I using? As you can see, support JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, Python, Java, Valerian, you can use JavaScript. Okay, today is just very, very simple. So we'll use the V4 model, which is the recent model. Now, and like I said, today is not, I'm not teaching you how to create Azure function. If the numbers are good, I'll do a whole series on Azure functions. So today I'm going to do an HTTP trigger, which is a function that is going to be called when you call that endpoint, right? So we're going to, and how do we want to call it? We'll just say Demystify name. That's the name of the function, right? We'll call it Demystify name. And then, yeah, open the current window. So now what I have done is just to create a local function, right? And it's going to scaffold all this function very easily, quickly for me. And then I can now push this code into the cloud. And this code is going to be available everywhere in the world. And you can all hit it because I have said that it is publicly accessible. So do you see what node application? And here it's a node application, so you can go ahead and add your packages and create all the things you want to add. And it allows the get and post method. Its authentication level is anonymous. So anybody can call this Azure function. And all it does is it looks for the name. Sorry, it looks for the name, right? In both the request query or in the request text or in the body, and then just returns hello and whatever name you pass. Okay, so if I were to execute this thing right now, right? If I were to run it using the node runtime, So this is going to spin up the whole morning. Fail to detect such a function. Yeah, so yeah. Okay, I know what to do here. So let's go ahead. Let's go to our terminal. And then in this, I can say func. And this should call my default Azure function instance or installation to do this, right? So there you go. Now let's see. There you go. All right. So I can say func here, start. And yes, I'm allowing it. So this is going to run. So as you can see, let me show you down here. The local runtime server started running here. And this is the endpoint is giving me. So anytime I can call this and pass my name to it, and it will respond with hello with my name, right? That's a very simple function. So if we can actually try this in a browser. We don't even need to use Postman. I just want to show you how it works. So if I do this and I say question mark name equals some, there you go. So this is running locally. This is running locally on my machine, right? And in the same way, if I use post and I put a JSON payload with name, some or whatever it is, so that's like a very simple. This is like a very simple function. Now, this is on my local machine. How do we get this function to be global that everybody can try it? And if you're on the stream, you can try it yourself. So that's what we're going to do before we can. Forgive me, even if we have a few minutes. Very well. So now I'm going to close the local runtime. And now I can go here, right? I can go to the function again, do Control-Shift-P, and then say function. And you can see here, deploy, right? Deploy to function app here. So this is, I'm seeing this because I installed the Azure function extension, right? So deploy to function app. This is from Visual Studio Code. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing. Function. So deploy to function app, and then it will start loading up and now say, hey, okay, you want to deploy to which subscription? Visual Studio, which resource? As you can see, there is a function app that is already there, right? Are you sure I want to deploy to this overwriting? Yes, I want to. So this is what it's asking me. Am I sure I want to deploy? It's going to overwrite. So if you're doing CI/CD, anytime you deploy, you're going to overwrite whatever to do that. So I hate deploy. And so you see that it automatically started to do the deployment. All right. I don't need platform IO right now. So look at this. So this is deploying directly into the Azure Cloud, which I just created. At the end of this particular deployment, what's going to happen is that you can now, instead of using the local host, you can now go to a URL and then find it. Like I said, this is the same as and now we are actually developing deploying the node application as an Azure function. So here you can add your own packages. You can create any sort of node application and deploy, right? The intricacies of using Azure functions, right? Which is, it cannot, I think, last for more than 15 minutes because you want it to do short time stuff. And yeah, like I said, this is today's session. Azure functions. It's just to introduce you to Microsoft Azure, create an account, which is the functions app and deploy. So it, as you can see from the here, it says that our stuff is done and is deployed. If I look on this side as well, you can see that it says it is deployed successfully. Whatever you want to do. But now we will not look at it here. We're going to go to the Azure portal. So you realize that this one was a local host. So I'll keep this. And then now let's go to our Azure portal. Let's go here to our Demystify demo. And then let's rerun this. Just refresh this. And now our function, the cloud, you see that right here. So do you see it? This is our function, the function we just created. It's now in the cloud. It's in Azure, running in Azure. So now when you click on this, we can now get the function URL, and you can see so that now this time, instead of the local host, which is the one running locally, let me copy the function URL from here, copy it and paste it here. There you go. So instead of /API, the name of the function, and then again question mark, I can do name equals Samuel. This time I'm going to say, well, maybe name is Kojo. And we run this and check this out. This now is showing Kojo, right? This is now showing Kojo right here. And this time around, we are not using the local, this time around, we are not using my local host, okay? We are using, this time around, we are using the one in the Azure Cloud, all right? So, yeah, I'm going to drop, it's very simple. I can go ahead, so now I can go ahead and make any change, you know, I want to make to the code and deploy it again, and it's going to go to the cloud. And then I can see the new changes. I can add a new function that does something else, you know, in TypeScript or JavaScript based on what you have selected. So this is what time is going to permit us. Hopefully today you've learned how to create an Azure account. You've seen how it's easy it is to create a very basic API function using Node and Cloud. I hope this has given you the foundation and basis of exploring and actually looking at how you can create your services and deploy them in Azure. It's exciting resources with you. Thank you so much, MT. Thank you so much, MT. I want to share some resources with you, which you can use if you want to, you know, still get a lot of stuff from Azure. And then also, because it's a developer channel, like I mentioned, don't forget .NET Conf is coming. But this Scott Hanselman and the .NET team have released the new videos, which I'll also add in the show note. Actually, let me just put it right here. Good show. Thank you, Mr. Efa. What are the authorization types to Microsoft Entran, so that people would require to provide a username and password or access token when they are calling the function? All right. So good time to learn .NET. Anything, once you learn C#.NET, you can leverage it, whether you are building generative AI, whether you are building just basic .NET stuff, whether you want to do IoT. So you can go to this resource if you're interested in learning .NET and C# to do programming, and then deploying your stuff also on Microsoft Azure. One of the cool things that came out, was announced after Inspire, was what they call .NET Aspire. Now, .NET Aspire is an opinionated way from Microsoft for building cloud-ready stack. So which means I need messaging, I need storage, how do I do all these things, right? If you're more interested, also take a look at .NET Aspire. that will give you a very interesting way of creating very scalable micro project. So you can scan this to subscribe to the channel, put your questions, your challenges, and we'll try to answer that. And then if you are also interested in joining the WhatsApp and the local meetup group for Accra.net and Azure user group, this is the WhatsApp QR code. You can also scan this, and then you can join the WhatsApp group where you can ask your questions. You can pretty much soon. That's what time is going to permit me. This is yours truly, Samuel Adjani. I do this every Friday, demystifying technology. Catch me on Sundays. We talk about everything Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, Virtual Agent, bots, pages, all the cool stuff on Power. And if you're an IoT enthusiast, catch me on Tuesdays for IoT Tuesday, where we do a lot of IoT. We build cool and interesting stuff. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. All these things are put onto the channel. You get more insight into it. With that said, thank you so much for spending your Friday evening with me. As I always say, keep safe. Let's make the world a better place through technology. I remain Samuel Adjani.